organize it in terms of metrics now. So you said we want to minimize waste. So that would be a metric that we would need to measure, which is waste minimized or something like that.
Yeah.
What else?
So I think in terms of the key metrics that we would want to look at going forward before we even dive into the solution and generating any of that is figuring out, what are the key things from both the service members' perspective and the business's perspective that they want to, track, because that's what, metrics are meant for in this framework. I think certainly waste, if we want to be more specific there, it's like the percent, we could just do like pounds of different ingredients that are left over that are, maybe have to be composted, maybe have to be thrown out. I think that's a good key metric that you can look at there.
That's great.
In terms of other key metrics we want to do, I think, because this is a financial metric, we still want to go back to that bottom line, is that how much, and then when we go back to how much food we're wasting, is how much money we're wasting, because that's the bottom line that we're looking at there. So certainly one of the things that we want to look at is our product cost as well. Is each week when we order food, how much does it actually cost to order all that produce? And then when we determine what that product cost is, how much is left over based off of the wastage that we have there as well.
So if I could summarize it a level above, we would essentially be measuring profits. So because now we're looking at how much money we are wasting, which really is just looking at profit. If we don't waste, we have more revenue, then we have higher profit. Okay, so good. Now essentially our North Star is let's increase profits. And so we're not just looking at revenue here. We're minimizing the bottom line and then thereby improving profit. Cool.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good North Star metric to go for. And I guess before we dive specifically into that, maybe I'd like to take a few more minutes just to see if I can think of any more metrics to kind of stretch my limits, because I think that'll help me determine if there's anything else we might be missing before we kind of really dive in and choose this as our North Star metric, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, totally. Sounds good.
Yeah. So I think a couple of other things is definitely, through this planning and ordering process is, I think another thing that, this is a bit of a side, but how much time and energy it takes to potentially organize and plan this all out. One of the things is each week, my team and I had to go through our ordering forms there. And we spent roughly 30 minutes to an hour determining how much of each thing to order there. So I think another metric is probably if we want to really specifically define it, is time spent planning. Does that make sense to you?
Love that metric.
Yeah. Okay, so time spent planning. And then what other thing can I think of on this end for the planning process? I think another thing that I can think of when we're going through this planning phase and specifically figuring out is, so we talked about the monetary side, we talked about the time side. Perhaps one other thing we can think about for this is something related to turnover, something related to a percentage of inventory that we have right now that we might be able to utilize from previously. But when I think about it more closely, kind of that inventory rate, turnover rate for produce kind of goes back to that profit North Star metric.
Yeah.
So it seems in terms of if we take it at the baseline level, the time and money are the two core kind of metrics that we would be looking at there. So I don't think there would be any other kind of potential core North Star metrics that I would want to pursue besides, looking at the ones that we currently have here.
So the time metric is very interesting because essentially it rolls up into head count. So if it doesn't take a lot of time, maybe we only need one worker. But if it takes a lot of time, then we need a lot more workers. which is another aspect of the bottom line. And then essentially everything just rolls into profit.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Cool. So for the interest of time, I actually want to pause the interview here without kind of going into solutioning, because right now we're already in a good state. So basically, here's my commentary. By this time, the interviewer already knows whether this interview is a go or no go. If you set it up as well as this, then you know, doesn't matter how you solution, you're gonna like just measure and use that North Star to then prioritize. And so the rest of the interview already does not matter at this point. So we can stop.